This is Geometry Lesson 1.3, Angles. We're going to start with the definition of an angle. So an angle is An angle is two rays that share an endpoint. We talked about rays in a previous lesson, but a ray has an endpoint and then it goes forever in one direction. So then we'd have a second ray that has the same endpoint and goes in another direction. So that is an angle. The point that those angles share, we call the vertex. So this little point here is called the vertex. And then the two rays we call the sides. So here's one side on the bottom, different side on the top, but I'll just label one of them. When we name angles, we always, sometimes we use one letter, like the vertex. Sometimes we use three letters. So let me add another point on this ray. I'll label the vertex, and I'm going to add a third point on this ray. So you could say angle ABC. Or you could say angle B. We use three letters or one letter. Using one letter, it's the vertex. Using three letters, make sure it is those letters in order that you would trace the angle. So we're going to talk about classifying different angles. The first one I got on there is a right angle. So a right angle is an angle that measures 90 degrees. Okay, so I'm going to draw a 90-degree angle. And we also use special symbols to denote a 90-degree angle, and that is a little square in the corner telling us that that is exactly 90 degrees. So if you think about like a perfect L, straight up and down, straight sideways, that is a 90-degree angle, also known as a right angle. Our next classification will be acute angle. So acute angles are angles that are less than 90 degrees. And so we kind of think of these like smaller than 90. There's less rotation in there. Okay. I always think of it like, oh, it's a acute angle. It's smaller. So we're talking about how much rotation there is from one ray to the other, from this ray to this ray, that is less than 90 degrees. Doesn't open up perfectly tall. Next, we have obtuse angle. An obtuse angle is an angle that measures larger than 90 degrees. And I'm going to put a top limit on that. Also, it has to be less than 180 degrees. So that would be like a really wide angle. So my angle opened up more than 90 degrees, right? So I'm talking about the amount of rotation from this side to this side is more than 90 degrees, more than a right angle. Protractor. Protractor is a tool that we can use to measure angles. And I have those to borrow in the classroom if you need. They look like a half circle, maybe like that. There's a little circle here to help us with the vertex, and then numbers going along the sides here to help us measure our angles. But we'll talk about how to use a protractor further in this lesson after we talk about how to name angles. So you already heard me say we name them sometimes with one letter with the vertex, sometimes with three letters if there is more than one angle sharing that vertex. So what I mean is right here I see angle T. I'm going to go blue. So angle T right here, that is the only angle at this vertex, so I could say angle T. But I could also say angle UTV or I could say angle VTU. Forwards, backwards, doesn't matter, but the vertex has to be in the middle. I wouldn't want to say angle U. Now, the reason I wouldn't want to say angle U is because there are actually 3 angles that share U as a vertex. So let's go green. I have angle U here, but I have a different angle U here, and I actually have a third angle U right here. So how can I mark these out? Let's try highlighters. Okay, so let's go in yellow. I'm going to call this angle TUR or RUT. Angle TUR or angle RUT. Forwards, backwards doesn't matter, but the U is at the vertex. So let's try the angle on the side here. Still has U as a vertex, but I'm going to call that VUT or TUV. Angle VUT or angle TUV. Forwards, backwards, doesn't really matter. And then one more angle that has U as a vertex would be this guy right here. So let's call that angle RUV, or we can call it angle VUR. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4. I see one more angle in this picture that I haven't labeled yet, and that is the angle that has V as a vertex. So right here, I can say angle TVU, or I can say angle UTV. A lot of angles. For figure B, I see 3 angles, and it's really like what we saw with U. So I see this larger angle here. I see this smaller angle that is a part of that angle. And then I see one more angle right here, which is also a part of that angle. So I think my colors made that really hard to see. I'm going to start with the large angle, XAZ. I'll just name them one way. You can go forwards or backwards, XAZ or ZAX. I'm going to do this angle on the left here, angle XAY or angle YAX. And then the angle more on the right, angle YAZ or angle ZAY. So 3 angles there. The larger angle, that is the combination of the 2 angles, one on the left and one on the right. So again, naming angles, I prefer we use 3 letters every time so that we know exactly which angle we're talking about. The vertex is always at the middle, and then the points on the sides of the angles would sandwich that. Letter B, use a protractor to measure the angles as accurately as you can. So I have a protractor that I pasted on here that I'm going to try to use. And we're going to move this around. There are 3 things you need to do. First, you line up the vertex with the center hole here. Second, you line up one of the sides with 0. Now you can do this blue 0 on the right, or you can do this black 0 on the left. Depending on if you use 0 on the right or 0 on the left, that's going to tell you to use your outside scale or your inside scale. And then the third thing you do is see where the other side points. So I'm going to try to turn this. Like I said, step 1, line up your vertex. Step 2 is line up your 0. And it's just because my little turn thing goes off the screen when I do this that I'm kind of adjusting it, sliding it back, adjusting it, sliding it back. But if you have this actual protractor on your paper, it's much easier to line up the vertex and then give him a little spin. I think that's pretty good. So right here, my vertex is lined up with the center mark. My ray is pointing at 0, and because it's pointing at 0 on the right here, I'm going to follow this inside scale to see where my other ray is pointing. And to me, that looks like it's 26 degrees. It's a little past 25, 26 degrees. Okay, for letter B, again, I'm going to take my protractor and I'm going to move him so that the vertex lines up with that center mark there. And then I'm going to turn it upside down so that the angle is inside the protractor. And one of my rays lines up with 0. So I'm pointing to this blue 0 here. I'm going to follow the inside scale. And to me, it looks like it's past 90. Sometimes what you can do is using a straight edge. I'm just going to freehand this because I don't have a straight edge on my screen here. But sometimes you need to use a straight edge to kind of trace that out so that you can see a little bit better where it's crossing. But I feel like that's 92 degrees. Let's move that out of the way. Grab my eraser. There we go. So angle 2, 92 degrees. And then finally, angle C. Again, we need to line up our vertex. And then we turn our protractor so that one of the rays points at the 0. And then wherever the other one points, that's going to be our measure. I'm off the page. Maybe I can zoom out. Something that you can't do with a protractor in real life. Let's just make them smaller. Your protractor in real life, you should be able to line it up and then see where the line points, even if it's off the paper. But on mine, I'm going to go with, because we're pointing to the left here, our 0, we're going to follow the outside scale, and that to me looks like 166 degrees. Okay, so something else I wanted to say. If you're not sure, do I use the outside number? Do I use the inside number? Think about what we talked about with acute and obtuse, okay? When you have an acute angle, when your angle rotation is a little closed, you want the smaller number. So in this instance here, I knew I needed the 26, not the 160 something, 150 something, because it's acute angle. Whereas letter C, when I was choosing between 160 something and in the teens, obviously that's open up really wide, so I'm going to choose the larger obtuse number. Okay, I think I got one example left, and that is using the protractor to draw some angles. So let's slide this guy down here. I'm going to make it bigger just because I want it to be more reflective of what your actual protractor is going to look like on your paper, so we can kind of see how that would work. So I am going to line this up strategically because I know I'm looking for a 125 degree angle. So I can see 125 right here. So I'm going to use this point here. I'm going to have my vertex here, and I'm going to have my 0 here. So that looks like a good spot for me to place this. If you have a larger piece of paper, more space, you don't necessarily have to be as strategic with this, but that's what I'm going to go with. So when we're placing our protractor, we do 3 things. We need our vertex. So use your pencil, put a mark there. We need our 0. You can put it here. And then we're going to follow the 0 line all the way up to 125. And that would be a mark right here. So we have the vertex, we have the 0, and we have the measure we're looking for. In this case, we're looking to draw a 125 degree angle. With those 3 marks in place, I'm going to slide this out of the way, and I'm actually going to use my straight edge on my protractor to connect the dots here, and then we'll give him a little turn, and then we'll use the straight edge to connect the dots here. Okay? You don't even have to draw the whole line, right? So I can just show, sorry, I wanted to use my pen. I can just show using my ray symbols that the line goes this way. I don't need to draw the whole line. And with this again, we're going to turn him. It's a little easier to do this in real life with a physical protractor, not an on-screen one. And again, I'm going to draw my line showing that it goes this way, but I don't need to draw the whole line. I can make that a ray to show that it keeps going. So then I can move my protractor out of the way, and that is my 125-degree angle. So I'm going to do letter B, a 55-degree angle. This seems like an okay place to place that. I need to mark my vertex. I need to mark my 0. And then I need to mark my 55. So I'm going to follow up my 0 scale. 55 looks like it's right about there. Okay? And then I can move my protractor to use my straight edge. So I'm going to line up my blue dots right there. And we're going to draw a ray showing that my vertex is going here towards my 55. And then we're going to turn our protractor. Use our straight edge. This is very difficult to do on the screen. Right about there. And then we will draw our ray to show it going towards that 55 line. Then we can slide our protractor out of the way. And there in blue, we have our 55-degree angle. Notice 55, acute, he's a little skinnier. 125, he's obtuse, he's much wider. I'm going to do one more example. We're going to do 72 degrees. And I'm going to do this one on the other side, just to kind of show you using the black scale instead of the blue scale. So let's start by sliding our protractor in place. And you know, you don't even have to start with a flat. Let's start with this one kind of askew. So here, we're going to mark our 72-degree angle. That looks like an okay place. And let's go green. We need our vertex. We need our 0. Oh, I just lied, didn't I? That's okay. That's okay. It's okay. Whew. I said I was going to use the black outer scale. So here's our 0. Following up to our 72, right about there. And then we can use our straight edge right here to draw our first ray. And then I'm going to give him a little turn. Line him up. I think if I scroll down, this might be a little easier. Because then I can turn him right about there. And second side, there's my 72-degree angle. So I drew him a little askew, but he definitely looks acute. A little less than 90. Wider than the 55, right? A little wider than that. And if those dots bother you, you can always go back and erase those. But I have my 125 in red, my 55 in a blue, and my 72 in green. That's it for this one. Good luck on the exercises, and please let me know if you have questions.